The question on everyone's lips is, does Street Fighter 6 pack the same punch as its legendary predecessors? Well, if you believe those fancy pant critics from the Big Shot trade press, you might think it's the bee's knees, a knockout of epic proportions. But let me tell ya, Reggie and the lads have a different take on it, and we ain't pulling no punches. So sit yourself down, grab a cuppa, and let's have a chat in today's review. Now, Reggie ain't no fancy fighter with all them complex combos and moves. You ask him who owes him a few quid, however, and he'll give you a name, address, and even their favourite bloody colour. But when it comes to Street Fighter, he's as lost as a sailor without a compass. I mention that for a reason, because what I got from this game might be a whole different kettle of fish compared to you die-hard fans. So if you're looking for a review from a seasoned pro, this might not be the one for you. But if you fancy hearing a different take and getting some insights into how I reach my own conclusions, then stick around. Ain't it just lovely how subjective opinions can be? Now, where does it all go pear-shaped, you ask? Well, let me tell ya, it's the Poxy World Tour mode that's absolute pig shit. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a right corker of an idea. You get to create your own character, dive into a story-driven world, and rub shoulders with the legends of the game, learning their tricks and all. The options for creating your character are endless, but unfortunately, you're bound to come across those randy lads who can't help but create characters with mammoth knockers and arses that make a peach jealous. Boys will be boys, I suppose. Now, meet my Reggie, a fine specimen of a fighter, if I do say so myself. I was raring to hit the streets and show 'em what I got, but oh lord, this World Tour mode is executed with such a lack of respect for your intelligence that you start wondering if it was intentionally made as a spoof, or if the writers were daring each other to come up with the most ludicrous script just to see what they could get away with. In this scene, you find yourself tangled in a web of utter nonsense. You are asked to make a counterfeit bag. Don't ask why, it just fucking is, okay? It's like they threw darts at a map of the world and decided that beating up locals for their leather jackets in New York City would somehow lead to a metal clasp for your counterfeit bag being created in Rome. I mean, who needs a logical progression when you can have a lion charging at you in the Colosseum, right? And don't even get me started on the Amazon rainforest escapade for souvenirs. Did they expect me to wrestle an anaconda just to bring back a trinket? It's pure bonkers, I tell you. It's as if the writers were high as a kite and thought, let's see how far we can push the absurdity meter. Well, they certainly succeeded in that regard. It's a mad world out there, my friends, and Street Fighter 6 embraces the insanity with open arms. And let me tell you, lads, the story in Street Fighter 6 is as cohesive as a dodgy bloke trying to sell you a genuine Rolex from the back of his van. It's all over the bloody place, and not in a good way. The editing is a right mess, and the so-called RPG elements are about as real as a unicorn prancing down the bloody high street. Instead of a well-crafted narrative, you're left with a disjointed series of encounters where random folk on the street punch you in the face while the coppers turn a blind eye. Talk about law and order, right? You can walk up to any Tom, Dick and Karen and start bashing their mug without consequence. These locations feel about as lived in as a cardboard cutout, and there's no sense of a connected world. It's all just a glorified menu system disguised as a shambolic story. What a waste. They could have given us a cheesy yet engaging script, like battling a gang that's got their mitts on a bloody virus, or a Karate Kid style journey from being a bullied school kid to a legendary fighter. Anything would have been better than this tripe. It's painful, lads, downright exasperating. Every time you finish a fight, you're praying for it to be the last, just to put you out of your misery. But what's that, Reggie? Oi, oi, he's got his fighting gloves on here, ain't he? So let's talk about the real deal, the fighting itself. And let me tell you, it's bloody marvellous. It's smooth, it's lightning fast, and it's surprisingly tactical. One of the new features in this game is the impact drive button, a proper beast of an attack that can't be countered with a standard block, and it dishes out some solid damage. And when you unleash this move, it consumes a bit of your drive gauge, which you can replenish by landing some normal hits. And how do you defend against these unblockable strikes, you ask? Well, with the impact defense button, mate. but don't go flinging it around like a nutter, because if you're not careful you'll leave yourself wide open, just like Philip Schofield at a journalist's party. One hit and you're staggering like a right numpty, and before you know it you're on the receiving end of a flurry of combos that'll turn you into a proper sack of shite. Add in other combo moves, the ebb and flow of battles where sometimes a good defence is your best defence, and you've got yourself a bloody enjoyable experience here. Especially for us casual players, the modern control scheme is a godsend. Just a simple button press is all it takes to unleash your fury on those poor sods, making the game far more accessible than I initially feared. No need to have the memory then of Rain Man to remember complex combos. Thank for that. Now, I dipped my toes in the online mode, picked my fighter, got my ass handed to me by some cheeky 10-year-old from Germany, but I must say there was still a jolly good time to be had. The online experience is solid overall, at least from the PC side of things. No lag, servers running smoothly like a fresh pint, and never once did I feel like I was getting ass unnecessarily, apart from my own lack of skill, of course. The only thing that really got on my tits was having to create a bloody Capcom ID just to get into the service. Can't a bloke just play a game these days without all the faffing about? However, when you venture away from the fighting, there's a solid mode in the form of the Battle Hub. It's like a proper hangout spot where players gather around arcade machines to battle it out, and let me tell you, the avatars people come up with are absolute mental. You'll see folks on winning streaks, which gives you that extra bit of motivation to take them on, and even the top ranking players strutting their stuff will be on display. Reggie quite enjoyed wandering about and spectating others as the battles unfolded, but here's my gripe: once you finish a battle, you've got to hoof it back to the hub and roam about the place like a lost tourist just to find another opponent. It feels like a proper slog compared to the lightning fast fights that can be over in less than a minute, depending on your skill, of course. But let's be honest, this is the mode that most folks will be playing. The trouble is, if you can't stand PvP and prefer a bit of solo action, then the World Tour we mentioned earlier is really your only bloody option other than just the standard fight modes. When it comes to the graphics in Street Fighter 6, there's a mix of good and dodgy bits. You've got these flashy particle effects that'll make your eyes pop, with blurs and glowing fists that hit harder than a freight train. Whether it's the blurred motion of a dash, the ethereal glow of lightning fast punches, or the gas of wind created by powerful strikes, the game delivers an immersive spectacle. Special moves are proper good as the camera zooms in and out, providing thrilling close-ups of the ensuing chaos. The attention to detail extends to the backgrounds, which are richly designed and feature diverse arenas that come alive with animated crowds. The art style successfully captures the essence of Street Fighter while elevating it to modern day standards. But hold on a sec, because not everything here is rosy. Sometimes the textures start off blurry and then suddenly sharpen up like a bloke who's just downed a pint, and the animations, they're all right in the fight scenes, but when you're in that World Tour mode, they feel about as stiff as Ron Jeremy watching a bunch of NFL cheerleaders. And don't get me started on the low-res JPEGs they use for store interiors. I mean, come on lads, we deserve better than that. I noticed a few wonky animations too, like feet going through bodies instead of stepping over them. And check this out, in this fight scene, the sand, it just sits there with no reaction to what's happening. It's like you're just stuck on a painted backdrop, not part of the action. And let me tell you, the lighting ain't quite right either. It feels like there's a bloody spotlight on you at all times. Here's an example where no shadows are cascaded onto the floor, but in other arenas you will be treated to them, so it's somewhat hit and miss. They've definitely cut some corners then, which is a shame because there are moments here when it's pure poetry motion, but then you've got these bland and lifeless bits that'll leave you wanting more. As for sound in Street Fighter 6, it's proper good during the actual fights. It's got that retro magic, punches landing with a satisfying swish followed by a thud that'll make you grin. The effects are over the top for the volume and perfectly synced with the action. It's like being back in the arcades, lads, and that is a bloody joy. Even the music sets the right tempo, mirroring the original games and getting you pumped up for a proper rumble. But here's the issue: when it comes to sound in that rubbish World Tour mode, it's a right letdown. Characters hardly have any voice acting, the ambient sound effects are lacking variety and oomph, making the whole thing feel even more lifeless. And don't even get me started on the music in that mode. It's like they're playing a different game altogether. The upbeat tempo that gets you fired up for a fight, nowhere to be found. It's like two bloody games being played at once, and it just don't sit right with me at all. Sound should be consistent across the board, and that's where Street Fighter 6 drops the ball. And here we are, boys and girls, at the crux of the matter. Street Fighter 6 then is a game of two halves. On one side, you got yourself a proper fantastic beat 'em up, packed with style, strategy, and fights that have you on the edge of your seat. The online mode ain't too shabby either, giving you a chance to test your skills against players from all over. But on the other side, we've got this tragic single-player World Tour mode, and I mean tragic, mates. It's a bloody mess. Yes, the concepts there are given that, but the execution is like watching a car crash in slow motion. I went into Street Fighter 6 all excited, seeing them hyped up reviews and high scores of 9s being flung around like confetti. I was as wet as an otter, ready to dive into the action, but truth be told, it didn't click with me. Street Fighter 6 ain't a bad game, especially for us casual beat-em-up fans. It's solid, it's fun, and the fighting is tight. But there's just so much that's bloody wrong here in one of the main modes, which makes up hours upon hours of the game. You can't just brush it off with a, well, that's just how Street Fighter is, Reggie. What do you expect? No, mate, that ain't the point. For $60, you expect more bang for your buck. It's as simple as that. If you like this review, give Reggie some love and a like. And until next time, my lovelies, Reggie out.